If you are using a remote Linux server to manage AWS, you've probably run into a problem. AWS wants you to log in using a web browser, but your server doesn't have one. Most people deal with this by using permanent access keys, but those are less secure and harder to manage. Today I'm going to show you how to connect your Linux terminal to AWS the right way using a simple device code. This lets you approve the login on your laptop while your server stays securely connected in the background. Also, as you can see on the screen, I'm working on a very small virtual server with only 1 GB of memory and one virtual CPU carved out from an old mini desktop. Normally, running a big program like Terraform can cause a low memory server to crash or freeze. I'll show you one specific setting to slow things down just enough so that the server stays stable and finishes the job. By end of the video, we'll have everything connected. I'm even going to show you what it looks like when your login expires after a day and exactly how to fix it in seconds. Let's jump into the terminal and get started. There are three prerequisites for setting up the connectivity: Terraform CLI, AWS CLI, and one account in AWS Identity Center. The link for the page on screen is in the description below. We'll follow the links to install AWS CLI first. We copy the whole install instruction for AWS CLI and paste on the terminal screen for easy reference. This Linux command simply means to take all the input below until the line that says EOF and echo back everything back to the screen. We're going to run it line by line to see what exactly it does. First, we download the AWS CLI package. We try to uncompress it. Command not found, no problem. We install it. It unzips the content of the package to a subfolder called AWS. Last thing to do is to actually install the package. The install works. Now, if you look at the AWS command in the user local bin folder, it's actually a symlink to the installed AWS command file. This simplifies version management when multiple versions of the AWS CLI are installed side by side. Okay, now with the CLI installed, It's time to get it to connect. I have an admin user already created in Identity Center, so we're gonna use it to connect. First, we're going to do some basic configurations. Initially, I followed some online tutorial and it didn't quite work for me, as you see next. Of course, there's no browser to open because command is run on a remote headless VM. So I copy the URL to the browser on my local MacBook and I logged in with my Identity Center user credentials. Press the allow access button, but still I get the connection refused error on my local MacBook. Back to the command line console, nothing happened. Apparently something is still missing. After a little research, I found out there's an option that you can set for this configuration command to resolve the issue in this situation. Use device code option is the key to authenticate on a remote host outside of AWS. Auto enemy is just arbitrary name I set for SSO session. Next, set the start URL and default region for my account. We can take the default setting for SSO registration scopes. It's for authentication against AWS Identity Center. The next few lines tells us exactly what we want to do. To give us a URL to put in the browser and the code to enter. Multiple factor authentication is enabled for my account. So first I need to enter my password. Then the Touch ID on my MacBook. Finally, the code we get from the CLI console. Everything looks fine in the browser. Now back in the terminal console, we can see the configuration process already got the basic information about my account from AWS. That includes the account ID and the admin role I'm connected under. It asks for the default region again, and I'm not worried about the output format for now. For the profile name, I just said Terraform profile. Press enter and that completes the configuration process. Run the command to verify the configuration, and the return data confirm we can connect successfully. All is good, but I feel too lazy to specify the profile option every time I run an AWS CLI command. Problem is AWS CLI only checks for the default profile if no profile option is present. We never config the default profile, so the command will not even be able to find the right credentials to connect with. Luckily, there's a shortcut to avoid specifying profile for every AWS CLI command. We can export the AWS underscore profile environment variable in the terminal session to set the temporary default. For persistence changes, set it in the shell configuration file, but we are not going to details in that. Anyone with a little Linux skill should be able to figure that out. Now that we have AWS CLI ready, the next step is to install and run Terraform CLI. Again, I chose to install manually because I think it's more straightforward and easy to do. I will have the link of the download page put down in the description below. The install is simply unzip the downloaded file and move the Terraform command to the system executable directory. Terraform is ready to go. Make sure you read the license file if you are using Terraform for production. Finally, just a little cleanup work. Next, we're going to download the Terraform script and use it to test connections to AWS. The link is in the description below. We only use it to get the account ID and the default VPC ID to test the connectivity to AWS. Now with everything ready, we initialize the workspace for the script. Now as the output suggests, we can run Terraform plan to connect to AWS and get the account ID and the default VPC ID. The command returns the right information we expect to see. A quick note here for running on resource-constrained hardware like this 1 GB VM. Terraform is hungry. By default, it tries to do 10 things at once. Running a script containing many AWS resources can cause out-of-memory problem and crash the node. To avoid that, we can append the parallelism option to the command. It tells Terraform to pace itself by serializing the requests and keep memory usage stable. Before we wrap up, I want to highlight one important security aspect of this setup. Throughout this process, we have not used any long-term credentials. Terraform is authenticated using temporary credentials obtained through AWS SSO, which automatically expires. To demonstrate this, I intentionally waited more than 12 hours, so the token we used earlier would expire. If I run Terraform plan again now, You can see Terraform fails with an authentication error because the token is no longer valid. To continue working, we simply need to authenticate again through AWS SSO. For example, we can run AWS SSO login command with a use device code option because we are running on a remote Linux VM. The process is similar to what we did for AWS SSO configuration in browser. After allowing access in the browser, the temporary credentials are refreshed and the Terraform command will work again. In this video, we only ran Terraform plan to verify connectivity by retrieving the account ID and the default VPC ID. In upcoming videos, we'll go further and start looking at actual Terraform deployments and infrastructure provisioning. If you find this video helpful, please like the video and considering subscribing to the channel for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.